بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to talk about Surah Hujaraat, which is the 49th surah of the Qur'an. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this surah to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the city of Medina. And Hujaraat is a plural of Hujra, which means rooms. So it means the rooms, and is a reference to the rooms of the house of the Prophet ﷺ. And it takes its name from the 4th verse of the surah, which states that those who call the Prophet ﷺ from behind rooms impolitely and loudly do not exercise their intellect. So basically they were being rude by calling the Prophet ﷺ. And so in this surah, we are being taught the etiquettes of how to be with the Prophet ﷺ. And also we are instructed about the etiquettes of how to be with other people. So basically, this surah is a surah about social relations, and it gives us very precise etiquettes of how to be with each other and what our attitudes should be towards each other. There are some famous verses in this surah that give us very specific instruction. One of them is in verse 6. It says, "Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu an tusibu qawman bijahalatin وَتُصْبِحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ." That all you who believe, if a transgressor gives you some news, verify it, lest you unknowingly harm a people, then regret over that which you did. So this verse is also known as the verse of Naba, meaning khabar, that if you get any news, then you should verify it. And we'll go into the reasons, if time allows, inshallah, why it's so important to verify news when it comes to you. And so this is one of the famous verses. Another one is verse 10, which is also very famous, where it says, which really kind of brought the whole of humanity together. It's such an important verse in our human history. So it says, indeed the believers are brothers. So this in one swipe, it's telling us that we are all one, regardless of the race or the language, or whether we come from the east or the west, we're all one. So this is a very important verse. Then verse 12 is going to tell us about the things that we are not allowed to do. So in order to maintain our brotherhood, which Allah SWT has stipulated for us in the Qur'an, Allah has told us that there is a brotherhood. It says that all you have faith, that avoid much suspicion, that much suspicions are sins. And وَلَا تَجَسَّسُوا, and do not spy on one another. وَلَا يَغْتَبْ بَعْضُكُمْ بَعْضًا, and do not backbite each other. And أَيُحِبُّ أَحَدُكُمْ أَنْ يَأْكُلَ لَحْمَ أَخِيهِ مَيْتًا فَكَرِهْتُمُوهُ. Will any of you love to eat the flesh of his dead brother? And it says that you will hate it. You will hate to eat that. But be wary of Allah. Indeed, Allah is all clement, all merciful. So these are some of the famous verses. And then another famous verse is in Surah Hujaraat, and this is often used in sermons, يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلنا لكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. That all mankind indeed we created you from a male and a female and made you nations and tribes that you may identify yourselves with one another. And indeed, the noblest of you in the sight of Allah is the most God-weary among you. Indeed, Allah is all-knowing, all-aware. So this is one of the other famous verses. So these are some of the verses that are in this surah that are often repeated and we're often reminded of. But we'll go through the surah, inshallah. So here we are. This is the Medina surah. Just to give you context of where we are when this surah was revealed. And this is a time when obviously Masjid al-Nabi had been made. And the Hujaraat, meaning the apartments in which the Prophet's wives used to live, is a reference to those. So in here, the incident is with the Prophet and with the Sahabas, but by extension, we are being taught of how to have etiquette with each other, how to have adab with each other, respect with each other, so that our social relations can be maintained and we can maintain that brotherhood that Allah SWT has told us about. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The surah starts with Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tuqaddimu bayna yaday Allahi wa rasulihi wattaqullah innallaha sami'un alim. O you believe, never proceed ahead of Allah and His Messenger. Fear Allah, for verily Allah is Allah is all hearing, all knowing. Next verse is Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi, and do not raise your voice above the voice of the messenger, and do not speak to him loudly as you speak loudly with each other, lest your deeds be laid to waste without realizing it. So here basically these two verses are saying that don't go ahead of the Prophet ﷺ, and do not raise your voices. Do not raise your voices with in front of the Prophet ﷺ as well. And here, ahead of the Prophet ﷺ is do not go in matters ahead of the Prophet ﷺ. Can mean two things. Do not go in matters. It can also mean walk in front of. But in matters, because when we look at the Shani Nuzul, you'll see what it means. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Then the next verse is saying, verily those who lower their voices with the Prophet ﷺ are the ones whose hearts Allah has purified for piety. So it's saying that be respectful and use a gentle voice with the Prophet ﷺ. They shall have forgiveness and tremendous reward. And indeed, most of those who call for you, O Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from outside the rooms have no understanding. So what people would do is they would come even when the Prophet would be resting, they would come and they would call, expecting him to come out and give them their answers and talk to them, etc. So if they had exercised patience until you emerged towards them, it would have been best for them. Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. So these are the verses in which we are taught the etiquette of behavior in the presence of the Prophet. So the rooms, this is what the surah means, Hujaraat means the rooms, is where the wives of the Prophet lived, and they were very small and constructed from palm trunks. So the surah is called Surah Hujaraat because of the mention of these rooms in these 4 verses, and it outlines certain etiquettes to be followed when in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. So the first of these is contained in the verse. It says, O you who believe, never proceed ahead of Allah and His Messenger. Fear Allah, for verily Allah is all hearing, all knowing. So this verse is extremely concise and it has a vast range of meanings. And Sayyidina Mujahid interprets the verse to mean that the believers should await the word of Allah and the Prophet before venturing to say or do anything by themselves. They should act only on the instructions of Allah and His Holy Prophet.
So we said that before you do anything, you shouldn't get ahead of yourself and say that, like, for example, it's mentioned that one of the Sahabas, before it happened, he said, oh, well, he should come down about this, regulations should come down about this matter. So they were getting ahead of the Prophet and even Allah, because they're saying that it should happen. So, and this is also, there's a very important pertinent point here that in Islam we have ranking, and we put everything in its proper place. And adab is, the meaning of adab is to be able to respect, is to be able to put everything in its proper place, in its proper ranks. And this is what maintains the harmony of society. And today we are losing this, that we don't put everything in its proper place. But this verse is actually talking to us about the putting everything and not getting ahead of ourselves. So Sayyidina Qatada rahmatullahi says that this verse was revealed in response to words of those who expressed the wish that some law be revealed with regard to certain matters. So Allah disliked this comment and revealed the above verse, telling them not to speak ahead of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is mentioned in Ibn Kathir. And Imam Bukhari has narrated from Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu that a group of people once came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and requested that he appoint one of them as Amir, leader of the rest. Before the Prophet ﷺ could say anything, Abu Bakr Siddiq advised that Qaqa bin Ma'bad should be made Amir, whilst Umar advised that Aqra bin Habis be made Amir. And then Abu Bakr Siddiq said to Umar that he was merely opposing him. So Umar replied that he never intended to do so. So as the altercation ensued between the two, this little argument, their voices began to rise. And it was then that Allah revealed the verse, "O you who believe, never proceed ahead of Allah and His Messenger." So you can see that they were told, and these are two of the mighty Sahabas, Umar and Abu Bakr, but everybody is human, we can see, and because of this small argument, their voices rose, and so Allah SWT has revealed this verse that, don't get ahead of yourself. And remember, Prophet came to teach etiquette. One of the biggest things Prophet came in this world for is to teach us how to live our lives at the highest human level, at the best human level, not just living as we see fit, or how we think we should live, or how our family lived, or how we see society living. We have been given very precise instructions of how to live, and these are contained in the Sunnah, or the ways of the Prophet ﷺ. So we can see that they are manifesting in the Medinan society, and as the society is being developed and as things are happening, then these verses are coming down. And in Ma'lumat al-Tanzil reports that a large portion of the surah was revealed at once to detail the etiquette to be observed in the presence of the Prophet ﷺ. Muslims are told not to raise their voices above that of the Prophet ﷺ, and they should never address the Prophet in the manner that they address each other, but should take care to be respectful. And obviously we show a lot of respect to the Prophet ﷺ. That's why when his name is mentioned in a gathering, we always say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam at least once. It's wajib to say it once, and after that it is reward to say more than that. However, whenever we hear the name of the Prophet ﷺ, we reply with sending salutations and respect to the Prophet ﷺ. And after this, it says, a narration of Bukhari says that after this verse was revealed, Umar would speak so softly before the Prophet ﷺ that he had to be asked to repeat himself. So this was to teach the Sahabas the etiquettes of how to be in front of the Prophet ﷺ. To see that as soon as they learned, they implemented it. And this is what Islam is about too, that when we learn, we implement whatever we learn, we practice it. And Sayyidina Anas bin Malik narrates that the Prophet ﷺ once found Sayyidina Thabit bin Qais absent from his gathering. So when the Prophet ﷺ asked about his whereabouts, the companions volunteered to make inquiries. And when the companions arrived at the house, he found Sayyidina Thabit bin Qais sitting in his house with his head bowed down. So when the companion asked him, asked him about the reason for his sadness, he replied, I have a natural loud voice, and my voice has been higher than that of the Prophet. I am afraid, therefore, that I might be from the inmates of hell. When the companions reported this to the Prophet ﷺ, they told him, Prophet ﷺ told them to go and tell Thabit that he was not from among the inmates of hell, but from among the dwellers of heaven. And this hadith from Bukhari. So this is, we see that the Sahabas took the verses so seriously. And Abu Hurairah reports that when the above verse was revealed, Abu Bakr used to, radiallahu an, you would whisper to the Prophet like a person sharing a secret. And Abdullah ibn Zubayr reports that after this verse was revealed, Umar speaks so softly that the Prophet had to ask him what he had said. So therefore, thereafter Allah revealed the verse stating, verily those who lower their voices with the Prophet are the ones whose hearts have Allah has purified for purity. They shall have forgiveness and a tremendous reward. So we see that then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed this verse that those who are practicing this, Allah has purified this this verse, Allah has purified their hearts. And the scholars have told us that it is makruh to raise one's voice at the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. Makruh means it's reprehensible, undesirable. So it's still necessary to respect the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, because we believe that he's alive in his grave, and when we go there to present Salatu Salam when we visit Medina, then we should keep our voices lowered. Now we see a lot of things happen over there. If you've been, and then so many people get excited and emotional, and so all of that is not from our deen. Our deen is very respectful and is dignified, and we should maintain that dignity even at the height of the emotions. So the next part is, indeed, most of those who call for you from the outside of the rooms have no understanding. Call for you, O Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So it said that this is there are several incidents that were pertinent to this verse, and it says that Sayyidina Zayd bin Arqam, that some Arabs convened and decided, let us go and meet this person. If he is truly a prophet, we should attain the good fortune of believing in him ahead of others. If he is not a prophet and is destined to be a king, we should still live under him in any event. We will benefit So he is destined to be a king. Still live under him in any event. We will benefit by establishing a relationship with him. So when they came to Medina, they began to shout out, "Oh Muhammad, oh Muhammad." The above verse was revealed in reference to these people. So you can see that this is one of the incidents that happened, and there were several more where people would come maybe in the afternoon when the Prophet was resting, and they would demand to get an audience with the Prophet. So they would stand outside and they would call the Prophet's name. And in the tafsir, many incidents like this have been mentioned. So verse number 6, it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in. Then this is the verse of naba, meaning khabar, when the news comes to you, the verse of news. And it says, O you who believe, if any sinner brings you any news, then verify it. فَتَبَيَّنُوا أَن تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ. Verify it, lest you should harm any nation unknowingly and then become remorseful of your actions. And isn't this a very common human occurrence, that when news reaches and we react instantly without verifying, then we can cause big disasters, big and small disasters. We can break relations, family relations can break, even relations between brothers and brothers can break. Just because news has not been verified and we go on what we have heard. And even empires can have fallen because of news that wasn't verified. Countries have gone into battle. Thousands, millions of lives have been lost because of things like this. So this is a very important etiquette for us, that always verify the news that you hear so that you may not cause harm to anyone. Now, the tanzeel of this verse there's a story behind it which regarding a Sahabi by the name of Sayyidina Walid bin Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt radiallahu an. And so the Prophet commissioned him to go and collect the zakah from a tribe called Banu Mustaliq. Now, when the tribe heard that the Prophet was sending someone, they waited for him outside, the missionary who was going to come. They waited for him outside the town to welcome him. Now, during the period of ignorance, enmity existed between this tribe and this man who had gone to collect the zakah, Walid bin Uqba, Sahaba, radiallahu anhu. So therefore, when he saw the tribe, when Walid radiallahu anhu saw the tribe waiting for him outside the town, Shaitan made him believe that the tribe was waiting to kill him on account of their past history, their prejudices. So alarmed by his thought, he turned back to Medina, and he informed Prophet that the tribe would refuse to pay zakat and they intended to kill him. Now, hearing this, the Prophet decided to declare jihad, a religious war against the tribe. So when the tribe heard this, a delegation from the tribe met the Prophet and they said to him that we heard that you're sending an envoy to collect the zakah. So we came out of the town to welcome him, and we intended to hand over our zakah. And however, the envoy thought it best to turn back while still on the road. That means he didn't come. He just turned back. When he saw us, he just turned away. So we feared that you might have become upset with us on some account and sent him a letter recalling him. So we seek refuge with Allah from Allah's wrath and the wrath of the Prophet. So when the Prophet heard this, unable to reply on their word, he didn't really know or couldn't be certain, he sent Khalid bin Walid to this tribe, Banu Mustaliq, with the instructions that if these people are still living in belief, then take their zakah from them. If not, then deal with them as you would deal with the disbelievers. So when Khalid bin Walid arrived there, he found that they were still Muslim and collected the zakah from them. And when he returned and informed the Prophet about the situation, Allah revealed this verse stating, "O you who believe, if any sinner brings you any news, then verify it before taking any action, lest you should harm any nation unknowingly and then become remorseful of your actions." So even though we can see from this incident that a battle could have taken place, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wanted to teach first the Prophet and the believers that when any news comes to you, then you should first of all verify it, make sure that it is true. And until you don't know it is true, do not react. Even with your emotions, don't react. So many relations break because people react in the first instance, and then when the hatred comes into the heart and the doubts come in, they can't remove them afterwards. So first of all, even before verifying it, verifying the news, do not believe it. Do not even put it into your heart. Don't believe it until you know that it is true. So even though this incident that we just mentioned was an isolated one, Allah revealed this verse in the Qur'an to address the entire mankind, telling them that every piece of information is not necessarily true. And for us, living in this age of true and false and fake news, it's very important that we verify news that we hear. Now, especially, the fake and the real has become so intertwined that we don't even know. Most of the time, we don't even know what to believe, and so we have to sift through so much to be able to even find the truth. And so many times, these conspiracy theories and these fake theories and things that are out there, what we are made to believe. There's so much. This is a war. It's a war of minds, and it's a war of news and who can get the news in first. And so to navigate all of this, we have to be very, very careful. Our principle should be what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in this surah, in verse 6, which is the verse of Naba Khabar, that make sure you verify everything. And even this applies to matters of religion too, because there are people who put out fake hadith. We can't even call them hadith, but they put them out. So before we accept it, we should verify it. Before we start forwarding things to people too, we should verify whether it is true or not. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Okay, and another important point here also is quoting this verse. Imam Muslim has written in the introduction of his book that and the narration of a sinner, a fasiq, will not be accepted. So if a person is a sinner, then even when they bring you khabar, then you will not accept that narration. So this is another subtle point here as well. So, which needs more discussions. If you would like to find out about that, then you should look more into it. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Verse 7. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Know well that the messenger of Allah is in your midst, that he is with you. And there are many matters regarding which you will be placed in difficulty if we were to obey you people concerning them. So if the Prophet obeyed everything that you told him to do, then there would be lots of difficulties. However, Allah has made Iman beloved to you, has made it beautiful within your hearts, and has made disbelief and sin abhorrent to you. These people are rightly guided. This is on account of the grace and bounty from Allah. Allah is all-knowing, the wise. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, first of all, He's saying that if the Prophet is amongst you and everything that you give him advice for, tell him and he was to act upon it, then there would be a lot of difficulties. And so, but however, Allah is saying, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the Iman beloved to you. That means he's given you this tremendous favor that he has made the belief very beautified in your hearts, within your hearts. And the light of belief has illuminated the hearts. And the effect of which is that no believer will forsake his belief irrespective of the odds. So Allah, this is a great blessing, tremendous favor of Allah. He is reminding the Sahabas and then the entire Muslim Ummah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it beautiful for you. He has made it beloved to your Iman, and He's made disbelief abhorrent to you. And these are the people who are rightly guided. And this is on account of the grace and bounty from Allah. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to know that this is a tremendous favor. First of all, to have hidayah, guidance is a favor. Then if your Iman becomes developed and you love what Allah loves and you abhor what Allah abhors, then this is a blessing and a great favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now there is a hadith which mentions that a person will taste the sweetness of belief when following three qualities are found in him or her. First one is when Allah and His Holy Prophet ﷺ are more beloved to the person than anything else. right? So these three qualities, if a person has them, then they will have taste the sweetness of Iman. So first is that Allah and His Prophet are more beloved to the person. Number two is when a person loves another for Allah's sake. That means they love them, they love their they love their friend, their mother, anybody for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even their blood relatives, even their children. The number three is they hate returning to disbelief as much as they hate being cast into a fire. So they would hate returning to disbelief as much as they would hate to be cast into the fire. And this is a hadith of Bukhari. So this Allah then says that about those in whose hearts Iman is beloved, and whom disbelief and sin are abhorred, these people are rightly guided. So if you are one of these people, you should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is solely on account of the grace of Allah and bounty. And Allah is all-knowing, the wise. So this is because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's infinite wisdom and His bounty on us. Verse 9, if two groups of believers fight each other, وَإِن طَائِفَتَانِ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ if two groups of believers fight each other, then reconcile between them. If the one group transgresses against the other, then fight that transgressing group until they return to Allah's command. If they return, then reconcile between them with justice. Be just, for Allah loves those who exercise justice. The believers are all brothers, so reconcile between your brothers. Fear Allah so that mercy may be shown to you. So here it says that if there are a group of two groups of believers who are fighting, then it is your job to reconcile between them. And this incident actually it's Sayyidina Anas bin Malik narrates that someone was suggested to the Prophet ﷺ that it might prove beneficial if the Prophet ﷺ himself approached Abdullah ibn Ubay, who was the leader of the hypocrites. So it was felt in this event that Abdullah ibn Ubay may forsake his opposition to the Prophet ﷺ and accept Islam. So consequently, Prophet ﷺ, mounting his donkey, left with a party of Muslims to meet Abdullah ibn Ubay. Now, when they reached they crossed the tract of barren land, they reached Abdullah ibn Ubay, and as they approached him, the hypocrite said to the Holy Prophet, please stay far from me because the stench of your donkey is upsetting me. In reply to this, one of the Ansar said, by Allah, the donkey of the Holy Prophet has a much more fragrant smell than you. So upon hearing this, Abdullah ibn Ubay's people became incensed, and a war of words ensued between the two parties. And this eventually led to a few fists flying and a little skirmish with branches and sandals. Now, Sayyidina Anas bin Malik says that they later learned that it was with reference to this incident that Allah revealed, if two groups of believers fight each other, then reconcile between them. So, there was a lot of fitna in Medina at that time. When the Prophet came to Medina, he was establishing the state in Medina. There were three groups of people. First of all, there were the believers, the disbelievers, and the third group was the hypocrites, the lukewarm Muslims, who came and said they were Muslim, but really they weren't. And, so there were these people who caused a lot of fitna from behind. So the Prophet went on this peace missionary to see if he could talk to Abdullah ibn Ubay, and this took place. So it said that this verse was revealed about this. However, these verses are basically about reconciliation, and if you get an opportunity to reconcile, it is one of the greatest immense good deeds that you can do, especially if the reward for reconciling a husband and a wife, for example, or families or brothers, etc. This is a very big reward that a Muslim can do. So in the Quran talks about this, and in other places too, that this reconciliation is very important, because it's hatred that mutual hatred in the hearts that shaves off one's religion. That when we walk around with hatred for each other, then it lessens and shaves our deen. and this is a hadith from Mishkat. So the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Darda reports that the Prophet ﷺ once asked them, should I not inform you of something that is more virtuous than a nafil, optional fasting, charity, and nafil salah? When the companions of the Prophet ﷺ begged to be informed, the Prophet ﷺ said, it is to reconcile between people. Mutual enmity is a sheva. So reconciling between people is a very big deed. It's more virtuous than performing nafil ibadah. Of course, it takes a lot of patience and it takes a lot of skill to be an intermediary and to sit down with the parties and listen to their grievances. And it's not everybody's cup of tea. It's not everybody is going to be able to do it. But if you are a person who is able to do that, then this is one of the sadaqahs that you should do for the community and for the ummah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. And in this verse, we are also told that innamal mu'minina ikhwa, that the believers are all brothers. So reconcile between your brothers, fear Allah so that mercy may be shown to you. And one of the biggest factors of this infighting between us is the ego. That the egos are so big and there's so much pride that people are not willing to sit around a table and to talk out their grievances and their differences. But this is Allah in these verses we've been told that this is not the etiquettes of the believers. In fact, because of this verse, it's saying that it becomes a wajib, compulsory for the leader of the believers, Amir al-Mu'mineen, to reconcile between the groups of the Muslims. And to get them to obey the injunctions of the Qur'an and the Sunnah. And then if one party rebels against the leader, then their complaints should be listened to and their grievances duly addressed. So this is something that is done on a national level, it's done on a level of the Ummah, and international, national level, that also done on a micro level in families. That families, this can happen in families too, misunderstandings, etc. So reconciliation is very, very important. Yes, you will have your differences. Yes, you might fall out with each other, but to return back to the fold, that is very important. This is what Allah SWT is teaching us in these verses. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Verse 11. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء. O you who believe, men should not mock other men, for perchance they may be better than them. So don't make fun of others. Mock means making a joke, making fun of others, mocking them. So Allah SWT is saying men should not mock other men. And then he says neither should any women mock other women, perchance they may be better than them. So first of all, we learn from this that they shouldn't mock each other. This is also superiority complex. Groups of people, like maybe even we have these jokes about the Englishman, the Irishman, and like jokes like this where people come from different places and then making jokes, tribal jokes about them. It can also be like just people sitting and gossiping with each other, and then they're making jokes about another group of people. And this is very common, by the way, in our Muslim communities. Even in the masajid, you'll see that nationalistic groups will get together and in their own languages they'll mock another group of people, and etc. etc. So that's what is saying. There are very clear instructions here now for us about social relations, that we should not mock each other, because Allah is saying perchance they might be better than you. And better, how can they be better? Meaning, what's the criterion for being better? Better is in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're told in other places that the criterion is that the people who are the best are the ones who are the best in piety. Right? The ones who are best in piety are the ones, that's the criterion for better. And so men are told not to mock other men, women are told not to mock other women. So in this verse, we're also told that men should be associating with men. They shouldn't even be associating with women, and women should be associating with women. There's a clear demarcation of men sitting with men and women sitting with women. This tells us that this debate, this debate that carries on about why men and women don't intermingle. Islam has a very clear demarcation of men because of the fitna that is caused. Men should be with men and women should be with women. However, it can work in even in men shouldn't mock women either. Not just because it doesn't say like that in this verse, it doesn't mean that. Never find faults with yourselves and do not call each other by derogatory names. Now, it doesn't say never find faults with each other. It doesn't say that. It says never find faults with yourselves. So this is not about self-criticism. It's about Allah is using the term purposely here, never find faults with yourselves, because you are one body, you are one ummah. So treat each other like you would like to be treated. Right? The old age, the wisdom that treat others how you like to be treated, it is right here in this verse. It says, never find faults with yourselves. So just as you would like to be treated with dignity and with respect, and that nobody defames you, in the same way, don't find faults with others too. And then it says, do not call each other by derogatory names. Don't call each other by names which you would not like to be called by, which are insulting, or the other person will feel bad. Indeed, it is evil to be labeled with the name of sin after belief. So after you know this, then do not fall into these sins. And those who do not repent are oppressors indeed. Right? They are oppressors indeed. O you who believe, refrain, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ijtanibu kathiran min adh-dhann. O you who believe, refrain from excessive assumption, suspicion. Verily, some suspicions are a sin. So don't assume everything. Don't assume about other people. This is what it must be like. They must be like this. They must be like that. Because it says that some assumptions are a sin. It doesn't say all assumptions. That means you suspend your assumptions about everybody, otherwise you'll be in danger. If you don't assume certain things about others, then you'll put yourself in peril. But it says don't be excessive in this. Don't become of a suspicious nature. In other words, that you're suspicious about everything. Like this can happen within a husband-wife relationship, for example, with your children. It can happen with your friends, with your own parents, even that you are excessively suspicious. Oh, it must be like this, it must be like that. So that is also a disease as well. So it says in this verse, "O you who believe, refrain from excessive suspicion. Verily, assumptions are a sin." Some assumptions are a sin. And the next one is never spy. Don't spy on another. What's not your business, keep out of it. And don't spy into other people's lives. And never backbite each other. This is the biggest thing. Never backbite each other. These are all social relations. So backbite each other. Does any of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother, which you so detest? So subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put such a visual, and it's so disgusting to us, a disgusting thing, that would you like to eat the flesh of your dead brother? Right? That backbiting is like that, subhanAllah. Then Allah says, fear Allah. Allah is most pardoning, most merciful. So fear Allah. In all of these relations, fear Allah. Put Allah first before you speak. Before you speak, put Allah first. It's Allah going to like what I'm about to say. O people, verse 13, O people, we have certainly created you from a single male and female and made you into various families and tribes so that you may recognize each other. Verily, the most honored of you in Allah's sight is the most abstinent one. Allah is certainly all-knowing, informed. So in these verses, we have got very clear injunctions about our social relations and of how to be with one another. The first thing is, and this is about social conduct. So the first piece of advice we're being given is that we should not mock each other. And Allah addresses the believers in this manner because, like we said, that the men should be associating with men and women with women. And that doesn't make it that men can mock women, because this is a common thing too. And even in our jokes, when we're telling jokes and we think this is innocent, but really it's a form of mockery, and it especially for people who are listening to it, and it's talking about certain and it's offensive to them, then we should be careful. Many times jokes are really truths that we put humor into, and we're saying them, but really they are we're conveying a message. It's a form, it's a delivery of a message. So we have, even with jokes, the Prophet said that he would not lie even with a joke. So it says, don't mock each other. Allah has made it clear that nobody has a right to mock another person. And true virtue lies in belief and good deeds when Allah accepts these from a person. And we cannot mock each other. Mocking is also belittling. We have to remember that. So belittling is when we think that other person is lower than us. And in reality, only Allah is aware of the inner conditions and the intentions and the sincerity of the other person. So we don't know what the intention and the sincerity of the other person is. No matter what the appearance might be to us, we do not have that information. We don't know what level that person status they enjoy in Allah's estimation, and this is why we're told that we should not mock anybody, lest the mocking comes on us on the day of judgment. Subhanallah, may Allah subhanahu protect us. So we don't mock each other. Again, the mocking is a sign of pride, because it indicates that that person thinks that they're free of what they are mocking from others. So if we want to have we want to have a remedy for this, we should put our own faults in front of us first, our own shortcomings in front of us, and think, I am very sinful. I have too many faults to be able to be mocking other people, to be talking about another person. And you'll see people who do these kind of things, they mock and they belittle. Usually there's so many psychological defects in themselves that they're trying to cover up. So when we are backbiting and mocking other people, belittling others, it says a lot about ourselves. It's really you are saying so much about yourself when you're talking about others. So we should be careful that this tongue does not lead us to that. Right, and mocking does not just mean that you verbally talk. It's also in gestures and limbs, etc. So we have to be very careful. Attitude is very important, and attitude is conveyed in all of our body language. And so even the backbiting can be conveyed just in the body language. So we have to be very careful about that. The second is never find faults with yourselves. Now, again, this can be physical defects or verbally or by gesture. So, Prophet I'm just going to relate this one hadith to you. Sayyidina Safiya, who was one of the wives of the Prophet, was short in stature. So, and Aisha mocked her height by telling the Prophet that she, Safiya, was only so tall, making a gesture with her hand. And the Prophet told her, you have spoken a sentence which would purify the oceans if it was mixed with them. I mean, if you put that statement into the oceans would become salty, purify them, they would become dirty. So just by saying that, the Prophet is telling us that don't find faults with others. Look away, keep your eyes protected, and even if your heart tells you something, then say, it's none of my business. The third thing is, and do not call each other by derogatory names. So first, an example of that is calling a Muslim a fasik, a sinner, or a disbeliever, which lots of Muslims do. They throw dirt on each other and say that. Similarly, a person expresses something evil by calling somebody a donkey or a pig or something like that, or calling a Muslim a non-Muslim, etc. So this is also forbidden in Islam, or reminding somebody if they had a past sin. For example, if a person was a crook or a drunkard or a prostitute, then reminding them of their sin, that is also forbidden. And when somebody labels another, now listen to this hadith from Mishkat, it says, the Prophet has mentioned that when somebody labels another because of the sin that the person committed, the person who labels will not die until he has found the guilty of the same sin. So if you accuse somebody and label somebody with a sin, you call them, a fraudster, you call them this or you call them that, then you will not die until that same sin has been, you're found guilty of the same sin. So we have to be very careful. Even if it's true about that person, then we have to be careful. And then the fourth thing it says, those who do not repent are oppressors indeed. That means after you find out, then you should repent. The fifth advice we're given, refrain from excessive assumption. Verily, some assumptions are a sin. So assumptions, they can lead, why are assumptions not good? Because they can lead to slander and backbiting. Like, for example, if you see your neighbor doing something and you get a suspicion in your heart, oh, they must be carrying big bags into their house. What must they be doing? Your curiosity has been aroused. Then you're going to go in the house and discuss with your family. Oh, I saw this. Maybe they're doing this. Maybe they're doing that. Yes, the other day they did this. So then it becomes, what does it become? Backbiting and slander. So you see, suspicions will lead to other sins. So this is the assumption. On some level, it's okay. That means it doesn't mean you don't have any assumptions. To protect yourself, you need to have certain assumptions about people. To protect you and your family. That's okay, but you should not go over the limits, because this can backfire on yourself. And like if you feel something from another person, then obviously you're going to avoid the person as a precaution. So this is not a sinful assumption, but other than that, too much of assuming, too much of many suspicions are sinful. Right. The next thing is, do not spy on each other. What another person does privately, and don't search for anyone's faults. The person who spies on others will be punished in both worlds and will be disgraced in both worlds. And there are people who don't have anything better to do, and they want to spy on others, and then they want to reveal their faults to others. So, as we mentioned earlier, this is very low life quality. This is not something that Muslims do. In fact, it says that a Muslim is one who conceals the faults of his brother and never pursue the matter to condemn the person. So you don't use it. If you find out something, you don't use it to condemn that person. Sayyidina Uqba bin Amir narrates that the Prophet said, when a person sees something in which he deems inappropriate to disclose, and he conceals it. So when you see in other words, and you conceal it, you will receive the great reward of bringing back to life an infant girl who was buried alive. This hadith is mentioned in Mishkat. So there's so much reward for concealing a fault of another person. So you don't go around, even if you see the fault, if you hear about it, you don't go around telling another person. Even as a news, we're very good at just to make social contact, and the surveys have been done about this, research has been done about this, that just to women and men, just to make social contact and to make friends and to make associations, we tend to backbite. Right, like at work, the people, the employees will. I don't want to use the word, the B word, but they will talk about each other in a manner so that they feel a companionship. But we have to refrain from this because this is part of this process of social relations. And you shouldn't investigate the sins of another person. What they do is between them and Allah. This number 7 is never backbite each other. Now, this is a big one. Don't backbite each other, because it's like eating the flesh of the dead brother. Why would Allah put this into the Quran? Why would Allah put a verse in the Quran about backbiting in such deadly terms? Why? Because it's likened to cannibalism, subhanallah. And why is this such a big sin? Is so big because it takes, when we backbite, we are taking the reputation of another person away, their good reputation away. And we are turning other people away from that person. We are putting hatred and malice into their hearts. If they don't have wisdom, then they will not know the difference. And we have been the cause of breaking a relation between that person or putting bad thoughts in that person. And to take away, to harm another person's reputation or their property is haram in Islam. And this is why we have to be so careful as to not backbite. And the definition of backbite is in the hadith. It says, Abu Hurairah reported that the Prophet ﷺ once asked the companions, do you know what backbiting is? Allah and His Messenger know best, was the reply. So the Prophet ﷺ then said, to mention such a thing about your brother which he dislikes. So one of the companions asked, what if the thing mentioned is true about that person? What if it's found in that person? Then the Prophet ﷺ said, if it is in him, you have backbited. If it's not, then you have slandered him. It's even worse. If it's in the person, then you backbited. But if you didn't, it's even worse because you slandered, you have made an accusation, which is even worse. So this is why, what's the definition of a backbite? That if you were to say it in front of that person, then you would be, that person would find it offensive. That's the definition of a backbiting. Now, some people say, oh, I would say it in front of that person. Well, if you would, then number one, you would offend that person. Number two, you hurt that person's heart. Number three, you probably break their relations with the person, which is also a sin. So, we don't have to become so thin about backbiting that and other people's faults. We get so offended, and we get so we think it's our right to say that. We should have humility within us and let it go. That if it's none of your business and it doesn't concern you, it's not going to harm you or your family or the people, then you don't have to react to it. And backbiting, Prophet once mentioned that backbiting is worse than adultery. And when someone asked the reason for this, the Prophet said, when a person commits adultery and repents to Allah, Allah will forgive him. However, if he perpetrates backbiting, he will not be forgiven until he is first forgiven by the person against whom he has spoken ill. Mishkat. This is important to note, that when you backbite against another, Allah is not going to forgive you, because the matter is between you and the other person. So the other person has to forgive you. So now this question arises: are we going to go to each person that we backbited and ask for their forgiveness and tell them, I said this about you and I said that about you? It's going to get very difficult, and if you're a habitual backbiter, you're not going to have many friends left. So the ulama have written that you should only do that, go and ask for their forgiveness, if they come to find out that you said that. But if you haven't, then what you can do is ask for their forgiveness. Ask Allah to forgive them until you feel that Allah has forgiven, until your heart becomes content that you have done enough tawbah for that person, for the wrong of the backbiting that you did. And this is a very big. So in our du'as now, we will include that Allah forgive all those people who we have wronged and who have backbited and we have harmed. And from today, we will do tawbah, that we will not backbite other people. In fact, this the backbiting is a topic in itself that we should explore. Now, the eighth advice that we're being given, it says that fear Allah, and fear Him from what? From abstaining from everything He has forbidden, because Allah is most pardoning, most merciful. So fear Allah and sincerely repent for all the sins that we have done. Now, many times these social relations, they're not talked about. And so we habitually, and maybe we learn this from our families, and we constantly gossiping and backbiting. And but this is a very, very big thing for a believer, because it drains away, it empties the bucket of the good deeds. So we should abstain from this. And if we are doing this, we should do tawbah from it, and we should correct ourselves. Number 9, the advice that we're given in these verses: all people, we have certainly created you from a single male and female, and made you into various families and tribes, so that you may recognize each other. So Allah SWT, by saying this, Allah SWT is saying in this verse that we've made you from a single male and female, which makes us into a single human race. Now, this fallacy of what social sciences has done as dividing us into different races, so the white race and the Aryan race and the Asian race, this is not true. This verse tells us that there is only one human race. We all belong to one human race. This is a fallacy, a modern fallacy at that, where people are divided into different tribes, and this division is done for a reason, to cause friction. Allah SWT is saying that we made you male and female, and then made you to various families and tribes, so that you can recognize each other. Allah SWT did this for a reason. Imagine if we all looked the same. If we were all the same height, the same color, the same eyes, everything was the same, would we recognize each other? No, it would become very difficult. This is why Allah, in His mercy, has made it that we look different, and we belong to different families and tribes, so that we can be recognized. However, we all are the progeny of Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salam, which makes us equal. The only distinction is by virtue of piety, and this is determined by Allah. So we cannot determine who is more pious than another. We cannot discern and judge this. This is in the hands of Allah. So some people, they claim that they have this lineage and that lineage, and they belong to this group of people. This is all man-made constructions, and remember, these constructions are made for a purpose: to divide and conquer, to divide the people, to put hatred in the people. And Muslims are told to refrain from this. We are all equal, and we all equally belong to the human race. And this is proved in our practices, that we pray together, and anybody can go and stand in the lines. There's no demarcation of who stands in the lines, who goes for the Hajj, where a person can pray, etc., etc. The 10th nasiha that we are given is Allah is certainly all-knowing, informed. So we should be conscious of Allah in all of these social relations. And the last verse is, I'm just going to read them. It says, verse 14, the villagers say, we have faith. Say, you do not have faith, but rather say, we have accepted Islam. Because faith, Iman, has not yet entered your hearts. If you obey Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah will not reduce your actions in the least. Verily, Allah is most forgiving, most merciful. So these verses came down to a group, a tribe called Banu Asad, who came to Medina, and they would boast about their Iman, and they would keep on impressing about the Prophet that they had accepted Islam, and they were here, and with their families and their wealth. And the Prophet, they kept on asking for favors because of this, because of impressing this on the Prophet. So they are being told that don't say that you have faith, rather say you have accepted Islam, because faith comes after you accept Islam, right? Or it can come before, but usually you enter into Islam, and then your faith will grow as you practice the deen. So this is what they are being told to say. And then in verse 15 it says, the believers are those who believe in only Allah and His Messenger, and then have no doubts, and they strive with their wealth and lives in Allah's path. These are the ones who are true. Say, are you telling Allah about your religion when Allah has knowledge of whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth? Allah has knowledge of everything. O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they boast about their favor to you, that they have accepted Islam. Say, do not boast to me about your acceptance of Islam. Rather, it was Allah who favored you by guiding you to faith, if you are truthful. Verily, Allah has knowledge of the unseen things in the heavens and the earth. Allah sees what you do. So, in these verses, we're being told, and by extension, we are being told that don't think that when you have iman, that you're doing a favor on Allah. Don't think that you have done a favor to Islam by accepting Islam. No, Allah has done a favor to you. Allah has given you the deen. Allah has blessed you with Islam, and Allah has filled your heart with iman. This is a great favor from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we learn many lessons from this surah. Really, we should go into each verse because these are practical lessons in Surah Hujaraat about social relations. We should reflect on ourselves where we are with each one of these lessons that we have learned, and we should modify our behavior and correct ourselves, and then do tawbah if we have been involved in any of these incidents, which as humans at some point we must have been, and we should do firm intention that we will not partake in any of these things, inshallah. So very important Surah Al-Hujurat, short, very concise surah, very important lessons for the Muslim Ummah and for us to take on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us to practice this and make our akhlaq, our personalities, our character beautiful, like how the Prophet showed us, inshallah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.